This really was, Otto Graham, the first great quarterback in NFL history. You almost feel like they're in an air raid. He's just letting it rip. Hey, Browns fans, welcome to another 75th anniversary edition of the Browns Breakdown. And today we are going to look at one of the all-time great quarterbacks in the history of this game, Otto Graham. And to help us break down some of this great Otto Graham footage, we have Browns offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt. And Coach, you know, we hear these names and it's not often we get a chance to kind of take that walk down memory lane and look at some of this old footage here. And when you think about Otto Graham, 7-time All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler, 3-time MVP, Hall of Famer, 3-time NFL champion, 4-time AAFC champion. He's got quite the resume, one of the most dominant players ever for his decade from the mid-40s to the mid-50s.
Yeah, 7 championships. I mean, I think there's another guy that has 7 championships claiming to be the GOAT right now, and he's pretty good. But I don't know. This guy was the first one, possibly.
And when it comes to quarterback play, I don't care if it's back in the 40s and 50s or if it's in 2021. You've got to be accurate, right, Coach? You got to know where to go with the ball, but the key is you got to deliver it where it needs to be.
Yeah, first thing you do when you're evaluating quarterbacks is just generally where do they put the football? You always ask for that ball to be put on the face mask. And the accurate quarterbacks, like Otto here, I mean, you see the ball, his accuracy down the field was uncanny. I think he still holds a record for yards per attempt in the NFL. So that's saying he pushed the ball down the field. And to do that, I mean, the first thing that stands out watching all this is his accuracy down the field, his ability to open his hips. He was like a true natural thrower, really good mechanics. And he did a good job with his rhythm and his footwork, too. As we go through these clips, the more you watch him, he really does a good job of putting his back foot in the ground and stepping up right there. There's a good look at his rhythm. And he's always sound with his base, and that always leads to accurate throws down the field.
And you're seeing these right in there, sometimes number 60, sometimes number 14, but the result the same. And when you look at these and some of these formations that these plays are starting in, Coach, it's got to give you a little bit of a chuckle in how much this game has evolved over time.
It really has to see, 3 backs in the backfield, all in 3-point stances. That's different. Obviously, when I started to play in college football, we had our wide receiver in 3-point stances too. So times have definitely changed, and some for the better. But that's how that was played back in that day, and he was obviously one of the best at it.
What I love is, and you referenced this right off the top, we call it bombs away, the vertical passing game. And I don't think when you think in your mind of 1940s and 1950s football that you're thinking the vertical passing game, but boy, Otto Graham did it, and he did it well.
He did. Usually thinking 3 yards in a cloud of dust will grind it out, but no, he pushed the ball down the field as well as anybody in the history of the game.
And when you look at, you're talking about kind of that base that he's throwing from, he is a very natural, very easy thrower. Looks like he's spinning it nicely, that tight spiral there, but putting it with a good touch over the top, and you see the nose turn down, so you know that he's got it coming out of the hand the right way.
Yeah, that's the other thing that stands out on these clips is his touch, his ability to take a little bit off of it, put a little top on it, and drop it down the bucket, so to speak.
You're right, that touch to put it in and drop it. And there are guys, tons of guys that have cannons, right? They can throw the ball through a wall, but you've got to be able to navigate the fact that there's usually people between you and your target and get it up and over somebody and down into the hands of your receiver.
And that's really part of fundamentals of following through with your follow through, allows that ball to turn over and now start to come down when you have to lay it over top of somebody, but you still don't want the tip of the ball floating up. You want that ball to come down, and that's all directly related to the follow through.
When you watch this, are you surprised? Because the thing that stuck out to me, and we talked about the touch and the bombs away, but just you almost feel like they're in an air raid. He's just letting it rip.
He is. I mean, it's amazing to see the ball pushed down the field in that era of football. And once again, just to still hold the record for yards per attempt is amazing.
It is pretty incredible. Now, you mentioned earlier footwork, and so we'll take a look at a little bit of his footwork and some of the evolution. And I think that's one of the cool things about quarterback play is that a lot of it stays the same, but they look at a little bit of a hop to the back there. What are some of the things you see that maybe we're not doing so much here in the modern game?
Well, he's doing it. He's putting his back foot in the ground. I mean, that's what you're always looking for, is that good base in your footwork. I mean, here he's showing his athleticism, obviously breaking tackles, and then still being alive as a passer, which is a big part of scrambling quarterbacks. You got to stay alive when you get out of the pocket. But his footwork was really good for that era. I mean, there's some 7 and 9 step drops that were going on back then, but not so much of that in the NFL anymore. But, we try to set that pocket depth at about 9 yards and have those tackles run around. He's getting back to about 12, 13, 14. But that was how the game was played back in that time. It allowed you to push the ball down the field, which he did.
He did that. It looks like he does a very good job of incorporating, and you mentioned this earlier, his lower body into these throws. You see that kind of that hip torque and twist as he's slinging it down the field.
There it is right there. He's really a full body thrower. Using them, when I say that, I mean definitely incorporates his lower half of his body, uses his legs as his power base and his power source to generate all the torque to get the ball pushed down the field with accuracy. There it is again.
And as you know, you just kind of think about the rich history of this franchise. I know for you, a quarterback in your own right, you know a lot about the position, the history of the position. This really was, Otto Graham, the first great quarterback in NFL history. And to know that you're in that organization that's been around 75 years and he was there year one in 1946, is that kind of a neat thing for you as somebody who loves this game?
Oh, it definitely is. I mean, at the time when he was retired, I mean, they were saying he was the greatest player ever. And just to see that, now to come back and watch clips, you can see why. He was an amazing player. Obviously, all the awards he won, the championships he won, and the induction into the Hall of Fame special, and the fact that he's a Brown and we're watching him here together is pretty cool. But and then Baker, obviously, he keeps it up. He's going to start hitting some of these records, which is pretty cool when you take it all in, the full history of what Otto Graham did.
Man, I know a lot of the rooms, and I know that last year, obviously, everything changed. So I'm not sure if your quarterback room was what it used to be, but it would have the guys in that room who are Browns that are in the Hall of Fame and guys who have made the Pro Bowl and all of those kind of things. And, it's got to be pretty neat for Baker to be kind of following in those footsteps and coming off of the great season that he was. 20 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, basically the second half of the year. Yeah. And that's as good as you can play the position, frankly.
Yeah, no, I thought he peaked at the right time for us. He got better as the year went on and will continue to grow as we move forward within the offense. But, to have his name up there with Otto Graham's a hell of an accomplishment for him.
Absolutely. And let me ask you this, because you watched this and there wasn't the all 22 tape to break down. And there probably were not great off-season scheme reviews where you can go in and let's work on this from a scheme standpoint and let's work on this from you on an individual standpoint. When you think about how much more information you have access to as a coach and then for Baker as a player now, this offseason time, it actually can be a time of great learning and growth, even though you're not necessarily here in the building, on the field, in practice situations.
Yeah, there's just so much access now to the technology of the film, the analytics side of it, all the websites out there that break everything down to the nth degree. There's a lot of information out there for sure. These guys, half these guys probably, drove the beer truck or did something else in the offseason. They got together for a couple of weeks before the season and they rolled out there. So, it was a different game now than it is then, obviously, but the technology's changed a ton.
I know that you guys say in your offensive play calling room that, everybody, you got 4 guys who've called plays in the league. You're throwing out good ideas together and it doesn't matter. We see good ideas. We'll steal them. I don't know. Maybe something's going to come out of, because we've done Otto Graham. We did Jim Brown. We've done Paul Warfield. And you talk about some of the legacy Browns guys. There's some pretty impressive stuff on this tape that maybe we'll get a little wrinkle in.
I don't know. We got to go back and check those out. But I feel like we got a pretty good couple Jim Brown type runners here now, and Baker's playing like Otto. So I think we're hopefully making some marks here on the tradition history of the Browns.
For a Browns fan out there who is, thinking about 75 years, the evolution of the game, and everybody wants to be a quarterback. We know that that's where the glory is. And now in the NFLs, we're seeing that's where the guaranteed money is and all of these things. So when you think about Otto to Baker and just in the Browns' less history and the legacy, what would you say to a young aspiring quarterback? If you could give them one piece of advice, this would be the one thing you would stress to them to try to make it to the next level. What would it be?
Well, obviously, it's going to take hard work. It's going to take a lot of dedication on your part. But I think early on for these young players, it's a matter of fundamentals, getting the proper throwing mechanics and the fundamentals early in their careers. As a young player, I went to quarterback camps, as a sophomore, freshman in high school, to learn how to throw properly. And it helps. It definitely helps. When you get guys in the league that have bad mechanics, you can't fix them at that point. So my advice would be get some good coaching, get around the good people that teach the fundamentals of how to throw the football and everything that comes with quarterback play.
Coach, this has been great. We can't thank you enough for joining us for a 75th anniversary edition of Browns Breakdown, looking at the incomparable Otto Graham. And it's pretty cool. You mentioned at the time he stopped playing, he was the GOAT. Jim Brown, still considered by many the GOAT, a very rich history here in Cleveland and one that we'll look to build on in 2021.